Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The April 9th, 2026 meeting of the Medford Planning Commission will now come to order. Kaylee, could you please have a roll call?
Rachel Bennett.
Here.
Larry Busco.
Here.
David Culbertson.
Here.
Mark McKechnie.
Here.
EJ McManus.
Here.
Marcy Pierce.
Here.
Jared Pulver.
Here.
Jeff Thomas.
Here.
Jim Wallen.
Here.
Roll has been taken.
We have a full boat. Tonight's agenda is available on the city's website for those watching from home. The order of business this evening will consist of consent calendar and written communications, minutes, public hearings, reports. Item 20 is a consent calendar. Have the commissioners reviewed the consent calendar and written communications? Are there any questions? See none? Okay. If not, can I please have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the consent calendar and written communications as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, Kaylee, could we have a roll call, please?
Rachel Bennett.
Yes.
Larry Busco.
Yes.
Mark McKechnie.
Yes.
EJ McManus.
Yes.
Marcy Pierce.
Yes.
Jared Pulver.
Abstain.
Jeff Thomas.
Yes.
Jim Wallen.
Yes.
David Culbertson.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses and 1 abstention.
All right, thank you. Item 30 is the minutes. Have the commissioners reviewed the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of March 26, 2026? Are there any additions or corrections to be noted? See no objection. They will stand as submitted. Item 40 is the oral requests and communications from the audience. This is the opportunity for members of the audience to address the commission on matters that are not on this evening's public agenda. If you wish to speak, please come forward to the podium, sign in, tell us your name and your concern. Okay, no one coming forward. Tonight's public hearing, items 50.1 will be conducted as quasi-judicial hearings. Item 50.2 and 50.3 will be conducted as legislative hearings. If you plan to testify, please listen carefully to the following prepared statement regarding the procedural rules that govern these hearings. The statement will be read by Alan Moreland, City Attorney.
I'm going to explain the rules that govern these hearings. Before the hearing begins, city staff will give a report. The report will list the criteria that govern the city's decision. After the staff report, the hearing will be opened for other speakers. The applicant will speak first and may ask for rebuttal time. Following the applicant, any other interested person will be allowed to speak. Any testimony, argument, or evidence you give must relate to the criteria listed in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations that you believe apply to the decision. If you fail to raise an issue or do not give the commission sufficient information so that the commission and any party can respond, you will not be able to appeal that issue to the Land Use Board of Appeals. If you do not raise constitutional or other issues about any proposed condition with specificity so that the commission can respond to that issue, you will not be able to bring a court action for damages. Before the hearing is closed, anyone who needs more time to present evidence must ask for more time. If you ask, the hearing will be continued or the record will be kept open, and you will have at least 7 days to present additional written evidence.
Thank you. In order to proceed through this evening's agenda in a timely manner, except at the Commission's request, applicants giving testimony tonight will be given 10 minutes to present their application. Individuals who have comments about the application will be given 3 minutes, or 5 minutes if representing a group or organization, and 5 minutes will be given to the applicant for rebuttal. Agenda item 50.1, LDS-26-014, consideration of a tentative plat approval for Cadet subdivision, a proposed 26-lot residential subdivision planned for single-family residences. The property consists of a single vacant parcel totaling approximately 8.98 acres located north of Cadet Drive and with the east terminus of Annapolis Drive stubbed at the property's westerly boundary. The property is contained within the SFR4 zoning district and includes a restrictive zoning and administrative mapping overlay. The applicant is Snyder Creek Development, LLC. The agent is CSA Planning, LTD. And the planner is Dustin Sievers. Are there any commissioners that have conflict of interest or ex parte contacts to disclose regarding this application?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the
Mr.
applicant
Moore.
is a client of my firm. I'll be recusing myself.
Very good, thank you. Any other ex parte contacts or disclosures? I do have one. I have a statement to read. I do hold my real estate license as a principal broker with John L. Scott Realty of Southern Oregon. However, I am not a managing principal broker. One of the owners of this project, as well as neighbors that wrote in opposition, are realtors with John L. Scott, Southern Oregon. We each run our own independent businesses, and per ORS 696-363, realtors in the state of Oregon are independent contractors. I have no financial interest in or control over any other realtor's business activities, and they have no financial interest in or control over my business activities. Does anyone in attendance wish to question the commission on ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest? Seeing none. Can we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Dustin Sievers with the Planning Department. I'll be presenting the staff report for the Cadet subdivision. This is file number LDS 26-014. So we did receive quite a few exhibits since the staff report was published last week. In addition to the emails we received from neighbors, which were included in the published staff report last week, we've received 8 since that time. These are included as exhibits Z through GG. To kind of summarize the concerns of the neighbors, I listed 4 here. So one is the traffic volume increase. So the neighbors are concerned with adding an additional 25 units on the property. It could have an adverse impact on the existing traffic system in the neighborhood. Also, some concerns were expressed of secondary access for emergency evacuation, particularly for wildfires. So we do have our fire marshal, Mr. Tanner Farrington, here. He will be speaking tonight. He can answer any questions that the commission or the public has concerning this secondary access. Concerns were also expressed about the existing streets, in particular Normal Terrace and Cadet Drive, whether or not these are going to be improved, whether or not we could require that they be improved with this subject development. And also there was concerns expressed about the existing streets and the impact with during the construction process, some of this larger equipment, some of the damage it may do to the existing street, and whether or not there's an alternative route they could take. So during our presentation, we address in each of these items. And finally, we did receive a letter just this morning from the applicant. This is a letter concerning access. They did a title review about tax lot 1100, which is owned by the Pacific Power, and it does show that they do have, it appears as though they do have legal access or legal right in order to use panoramas. This is a topic we'll discuss later in our presentation. So looking at our legal requirements, so the criteria for land division are found in section 10.2025 of the Land Development Code. It's also included in your staff reports. Looking at our project summary, so the subject site consists of a single vacant parcel. It totals approximately 8.98 acres. As you can see, it is located in northeast Medford. It's not quite on the edge of city limits, so this is the subject parcel. So there is another vacant parcel to the north, which is inside city limits. And further to the north is Jackson County, and that includes this urban reserve area, which is MD3. Looking at the streets, so Cadet Drive is currently located along the southwest portion of the site, and stubbed at its western portion is the eastern terminus of Annapolis Drive. Looking at the surrounding area, it's all single-family residential. Immediately to the south, we have the Panorama Heights phases 1 and 2. And immediately to the west, you have the East Terrace Estates. And you see all these subdivisions take access off Normal Terrace and Cadet Drive. Here's an image of the site looking northwest from Cadet. I see there is some hillside topography here. So here's an image of an aerial view showing we do have some steep slopes to the rear of the property. The applicant did provide a slope analysis shown here at the bottom right of the screen. It shows some slopes that even exceed 15% grade downhill towards the north of the property. So again, they did provide a slope analysis, which was reviewed by our Public Works Department. Site's general land use plan designation is urban residential. Its zoning is SFR 4, that's single family residential, 4 lots per gross acre. Property is also located in a restricted zoning administrative overlay. So the restricted zoning was applied when the surrounding area was rezoned in 2018, and a trip cap stipulation was established at that time. We'll be talking about that trip cap and that trip study in a few slides. And the proposals for Cadet subdivision, again, it's a 26-lot residential subdivision, and the applicant's findings state that it's intended for single-family residences. Moving on to issues analysis. So taking a closer look at the submitted tentative plat. First, look at density. So the commission can find at 25 lots. Let me back up. There's 26 lots, 25 are proposed for residential development. And so that does fall within the minimum maximum range for the zoning district, and the size of the property actually is towards the bottom of the range. So a minimum of 23 was required, and they're proposing 25. The commission can also find in each of the 26 lots meet the dimensional standards of the SFR 4 zone, and that's for lot area, width, depth, and frontage. Again, 25 of the 26 proposed to be developed with residences, while lot 19 will serve as a detention facility to serve the subdivision, and that will consist of above ground ponds, and then we'll have bios wells, which will treat the stormwater. Next, we'll look at public streets. So there'll be extension of 2 public streets and the creation of 1 new street with this subdivision. So along the southerly side of the property, Cadet Drive will be extended to the east of the property, and to the north, Annapolis Drive will be also be extended to the east. It's classified as a minor residential, while Cadet is classified as a standard residential. And they'll also be creating what they're simply calling Street A at this time. I'm assuming it's going to be named in the future, and it will connect Annapolis and Cadet Drive. Which brings us to block length. So as you can see, with the new plat, they will be creating a small block bounded by Cadet Drive and Annapolis Drive to the north and south, and an Admiral Way and Street A to the east and west. They do, however, exceed our block length standards, particularly in extending a north-south street to the north corner. So the applicant has requested relief from this, and staff is supportive of the request, because due to the topography to the rear of the property, if north-south running street would be served better further to the east. So as development inevitably occurs to the north and the east in the future years, at that time, a north-south street will be required to be installed. All right, so finally, we'll try to address each of the major concerns expressed by the neighbors. First, we'll look at the traffic volume increase. So as this map depicts, several of these subdivisions areas take access from Normal Terrace, which is the only ingress and egress out to Foothill Road. So the applicants, the neighbors have expressed concerns about adding an additional 25 units and putting more of a stress on this traffic system. So a traffic impact analysis was done on the property. That was part of the zone change, which was approved in 2018. That was a surrounding area, including the subject site. It was around 90 acres that was approved for the zone change. And the trip cap, the traffic impact analysis found there was a trip cap of 258 average daily trips. So that is equivalent to 28 single-family homes or units that can be built on the property. So again, they're proposing 25 buildable lots, so that will leave only 3 left. So while as you're all familiar, the House Bill 2001 does allow for middle housing, accessory dwelling units, sometimes duplexes, triplexes, et cetera. And in this particular event, though, they will be limited. They only have 3 additional units they'll be able to put in once they put a single-family home on each of these lots. So if they want to put additional units on the property, or more likely, once new developments occur further to the north or further to the east, at that time they're either upgrade their traffic impact study, or likely they'll have to do some improvements to the overall transportation facility plan. Next, we'll look at secondary access. So this is a big concern, and this concern was expressed or shared with our fire marshal. So in Exhibit S is the report submitted by the fire department. They do state that a secondary access is required, and this is due to wildfire safety. So again, you have all these properties have sole ingress and egress out to Foothill Road is Normal Terrace, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with Normal Terrace. Is quite steep road. So we didn't meet with the applicant, the city staff, and in particular the fire marshal, to discuss the possibility of utilizing Panorama Drive in order to connect the subject property and the whole neighborhood to Lone Pine to the south and ultimately connect to North Foothill Road. Now, Panorama is not a public street. It's on private property. It's a private roadway. As you can see here, it currently traverses two separate properties. One is owned by Pacific Power, and it looks like we do have, there is approval or a legal right in order to use Panorama on that portion of the property, and then you also have Yonser. So the applicant it's their intent to seek easements from these two property owners. And so that will be required, and in addition to getting the easements, they also have to improve this roadway to meet fire code standards. It's my understanding, again, I'll let Mr. Farrington, our fire marshal, speak further to this, but it's my understanding they wanted to remain gravel. However, there will be some improvements that will have to be made. It's also my understanding that it will not be emergency access only. It will be open to the public. And finally, I want to talk about the improvement of the existing streets and the impact during construction phase. As you can see, both Normal Terrace and Cadet Drive, these streets were they were approved and built by the county before the properties these particular areas were annexed in the city. So you can see a lot of them are include few improvements. They're paved, they lack curb and gutter, sidewalks. A lot of them doesn't have any striping. The other parts are in various stages of disrepair. So there is some work that needs to be done out there. So the applicant has, or excuse me, the neighbors expressed concerns about not only adding additional traffic out here, but also the potential impacts of having heavy equipment coming through here during the construction process, and whether or not they could possibly utilize Panorama Drive, which again is a private roadway. To answer these questions, I'm gonna hand this over to Mr. Doug Burrows of the Public Works Department.
Good evening, Chair, fellow commissioners. I'm Doug Burrows with Public Works Department. Thanks, Dustin. Thanks a lot. Dustin asked me to cover a couple items. I might be able to add a little bit more to a couple other things, but the first one I want to talk about is street improvements to Normal Terrace and Cadet, the existing portions. So those were initially built and developed in the county, and then we took them over jurisdictionally in 2019. Since then, I think we've paved a good majority of Normal Terrace and a small portion of Cadet Drive, and we've provided some striping and some critical places like the switchbacks, the hairpin turns, and that type of thing. There is some fog lines out there, not along the whole thing, but along portions of that. So I know a lot of the folks, and thank you folks for coming out today. I appreciate that. It's always good to see the neighbors come out and be able to express what they want on the project. It sounds like there was some interest in additional striping. So my recommendation would be to submit a citizen request form. You can get that form on our website. That'll go to our traffic department. They will look at it, and then a final determination will be made by the transportation committee. And if that isn't agreeable, then that can always go to council as another level if they don't feel like they're getting what they need out there. In the jurisdictional transfer to the city in 2019, now we maintain the road surface. So that's our responsibility now. And so we'll do that. As I said, we've done some of that already. There may need to be some more in the near future. As far as improving that to city standards, first of all, the city doesn't have a funding mechanism to improve lower order streets. We've probably talked about this before. We do have funding mechanisms to build higher order streets. It's called their SDC fees. So that's one thing. Another thing is typically lower order streets are improved as adjacent property develops. You guys have seen that. It's probably not easy to see on this aerial, but right about where that red dot is, there is some curb gutter and sidewalk. And that was put in when the development to the north actually has a little frontage on Normal Terrace. They had to improve part of their frontage. And so that's the main way we see lower order streets developed. Now, there's already a lot of development up here. Obviously, there's some large areas that could possibly develop more. So if they do, then they may bring some additional street improvements to normal. But, along Cadet, most of that's pretty much built out. So the other option, the code allows is the formation of a local improvement district. Excuse me, and that would take, I believe, a petition that would be submitted, and then council would have to approve that and direct the city to basically improve that street. And then the homeowners up there would be assessed a fee to go to the construction of that street. So that would be the other codified option. Now, the good question, well, why aren't these guys supposed to do it? Well, the TIA didn't identify that as an improvement that was required as part of building these 25 to 28 homes. Now, when the rest of the property up there develops and they have to do another TIA, we'll have to see what that says. Maybe it will identify problems with this road, but we won't know until we get there. And the TIA that we have, as you know, is done at the time of zone change, and that's what it said, and that's what we're obliged to follow. So that's the improvements to normal and cadet. Construction. So construction activity coming up to the hill. Panorama seems like a great option. We have no jurisdiction over Panorama Drive whatsoever, so I can't make anybody force their construction traffic onto Panorama Drive. I got one option, and that's Normal Terrace. That's all. That's the only public street going up the hill right now, and so that's the only public access to the site. They can get permission to use Panorama Drive. Great. We just can't make them do that. The other thing that came up in some of the comments that were submitted is there's a weight limit and a length limit on Normal Terrace. Those are kind of managed by the county. If there's issues with that, especially like if construction traffic has to go on there, they're limited to 25 tons. That could be limiting for construction, to limit their trucks to 25 tons. So that's something we'd have to look at. If it's damaged because of construction traffic, that's something that we'd probably get involved with and start looking at the developer of the contract and find out why they're going up there with heavy trucks. But the county also kind of manages those weight limits and the length limits. So I would encourage the homeowners up there, if they think there's a violation, to let us know or let the county know and let the police know too, and we can kind of chase that down. I think I hit all the main points. Was there anything else you wanted me to do? Are there any questions about any of that stuff I just jabbered about?
Yeah, Commissioner Besco.
Thank you, Doug, for the report. I wanted to ask, when you mentioned the local improvement district, they used to allow 10 years, when the property owner is assessed, they could arrange a 10-year payback. Is that still available?
Yeah, I think the 10-year is, so that'd be a developer reimbursement district. The developer could say, hey, I'm going to build that street, and then if anyone else develops on that street that they built, within 10 years, they have to pay that back. I will say this, in the 20 years I've been here, I've rarely seen these done. I've seen one done a long time ago, and I think it expired before anyone actually built on it. So
I think I was talking to someone about a little bit different. So a local improvement district, if that were one generated out there, and then all the street would be improved up, through the district, and then it was a name we had for it, but they used to have. They could enter into agreement with the city to pay it back in 10 years. That's what I was talking about.
yeah, I'm a little fuzzy on the details of the local improvement district there. I was trying to brush up on it. I apologize, but yeah, I think there's a petition that has to go out, and over half the people have to sign up, and then it goes to council, I think, for a vote, and then it would be instituted, and then I don't know if the city has to design it and build it, and then it gets back charged, which would be, I will tell you this is going to be an expensive road to improve that. With curb gutter on both sides and sidewalk even on one side, it's going to be expensive. There's some definitely hillside issues up there. So yeah, and I can definitely, if people are curious about that, I'm happy to dig into that some more if there's some interest and get them some good direction on that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner McKechnie.
Yeah, hi, Doug. So all the area around this is all in the city, that Panorama Drive and Lone Pine, that's all.
Most of it is.
Because you said
can we
county
just turn that
controlled
way
for
around?
something,
Let's just
but-
solve this question right now, darn it.
All right.
I know there's a little bit, all the area around, I believe this property is in the UGB, and I think it's all in the city because it just went through that zone change process. There is some, oh, there we go, perfect. So that green area is urban reserves, but all the tannish area
Tan color is all
is city.
Medford. Okay. And so if, right now Panorama Drive is a private road, so if that was to become public, it would have to be improved by somebody,
Yes,
Okay.
it would.
not the city.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of development potential. I would think whoever is going to bite the big chunk off up there and is going to need another public access,
Yeah.
which at some point, it seems like that's going to go without saying, that they're going to, yeah, Panorama's a likely choice. I don't know where else they're going to get there, so.
Okay. Right.
Any other questions of Dustin, Doug, anybody? Dustin, you have more presentation? Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, next we have Mr. Farrington, our fire marshal's going to address any questions you have about the secondary access, any wildfire concerns.
All right, hopefully that's showing okay. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners, Tanner Farrington, Medford Fire. So just wanted to talk about a couple things. I'll let the rest of the process play out and then follow up with any questions or additional concerns that get brought up. But I wanted to highlight a couple things here that I anticipate the public is going to talk about as well. Just south of this community, there's high voltage transmission lines, and then it's uphill to this community from those lines to the north. So, and this entire area is in our mapped wildfire hazard risk area. So, definitely significant wildfire risk, other natural hazards as well, potentially, including landslide and seismic. So that's something that we consider. Having two access points is beneficial not only for wildfire, but other types of emergencies. We had this last season with some rains. There was a local street that had a slide, and having a second way out was beneficial for that as well. So just wanted to highlight real quick, this area does have wildfire risk. It is going to benefit the development to have a second access, and I'm sure the applicant's going to talk about it as well, just like Dustin did. We've had good conversations with the applicant. They're working on verifying and providing easements to provide that second access. The other comments are kind of minor, changing some of the proposed hydrant locations, which we can work through. And then we did ask for 33-foot paved width streets rather than 28-foot to provide adequate access. There's a side project going on to provide some better consistency on those. But just wanted to hit those highlights real quick, and then I can dive deeper if you want now or after the public provides their comments. Yes, sir.
Yes, McKechnie?
Thank you. Howdy again. So isn't it true that the fire code actually requires two accesses if you're over a certain number of units in an area?
Yeah, so the fire code has a general requirement for if there's more than 30 single-family dwellings. There's some guidance for other types of projects like multifamily, but for single-family, the guideline is more than 30 homes. There is an exception built in for sprinklers. However, that standard is set up, or that exception is meant to apply to any neighborhood anywhere across the entire United States or the world, because it's the International Fire Code. That section builds upon a general section in Chapter 5 that basically says where there could be congestion or an access route could be blocked, or there's weather or topography, so steep slopes, weather conditions that make it unfavorable for a variety of situations, including wildfire, that we have the authority and responsibility out of Chapter 7 of the Muni Code and the fire code to require a second access. So this is a great candidate where it's really necessary to have that second access and to have it be public. The reason we want it public, not gated, is so that if there's an emergency, the people living here can evacuate and not stack up in front of a gate and wait for us to get there to let them out while we still have other resources coming in. That just slows down the whole thing, puts them at risk. So long way of answering your question, yes, a second access is required.
And does that access need to be all-weather?
It needs to be all-weather, meaning it needs to be able to support our rigs in all weather. So our apparatus is heavy, construction vehicles are heavy. What that means is don't make it to where we're going to sink. Panorama, we use Panorama all the time. It's a gravel access road. We're fine with that. That's actually kind of ideal if it's slippery, icy, snowy conditions. So as long as there's sufficient width and it'll support our apparatus, we're fine. My anticipation is the short connection between Panorama and Cadet may need to be upgraded a little bit, but short of that, I think we'll probably be in pretty good shape.
And what about, since it's gravel, is there some plan for, do you require a plan for maintenance or something else so it's actually passable all the time?
Basically, if it's an established access route, it has to be maintained. So there's requirements that if it's a required access, it has to be maintained. So it's kind of built into the code requirements.
Okay. And I know that some other areas in this side of town, you've required fire sprinklers. Is that going to be the case in this development?
It will not be the case for this development. So there's some situations where sprinklers are required in lieu of a second access. And in this case, we're at the point where we're requiring a second access. So they wouldn't need to provide sprinklers on top of that. Sprinklers are out of the International Residential Code or a minimum standard. In Oregon, they're removed from the building code as a minimum standard. Lots of states do that. Sprinklers are great. They do a very good job of protecting life and the buildings, but only if there's a fire inside.
Yeah.
So if there's a fire outside, which is kind of the bigger risk in this area, if we've got an exterior fire, it goes to the interior, those sprinklers are not going to do anything. So with the significant wildfire risk, we feel like a second access is really important to have, not only for the people living here, but for us to be able to get there and protect their homes and their lives.
Oh, thank you. No other questions.
Commissioner Thomas?
So just for my clarification, so the homes that are there already push you over the 30 residents for a second.
Correct.
So how did we get that approved if there wasn't a second?
Great question. So, and I think Mr. McKechnie might have been alluding to this. So I think the last subdivision was around 2017-ish. So this was pre-Almeda. I think there was kind of a policy in place to look at allowing sprinklers as a way to continue development. Lessons learned from Almeda, we've shifted on that policy and realized how important it is to have access, not only for the people living in these developments, but for us to be able to get there and protect them. So I think and I wasn't the one in this role for those previous developments, but I think for previous development in this area, that sprinkler exception was being used.
Is there sprinklers in the other developments?
I believe some of the homes are sprinklered.
Yeah, okay. And then the last question, and it's probably not for you, it's probably, is how could we approve this until there was, how could we approve this assuming that they're going to get access? Would we have to wait until access was given and then being brought back to us?
I believe there's a condition. You want to speak to that? Okay.
So we have a condition of approval, they comply with the fire department's report. So I'm assuming there, any improvements are required on this panorama will be done at the same time they do their public improvement for the new streets they're extending. So that will have to be done. So basically, it'd have to be, the easements have to be in place, and then the road will have to be ready to go before final plat approval.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of either Fire Marshal Farrington or staff?
I'll just finish
All right,
off my recommendation.
Continue on Dustin.
Yeah. Where are we at? All right, finish off our findings and recommendations. So staff has reviewed the applicant's findings and conclusions, and we recommend the commission adopt the findings as submitted. And we ask that you adopt the findings recommended by staff and direct staff to prepare a final order for approval of LDS 26-014. That's per the staff report dated April 2nd, 2026. Includes exhibits A through HH, and we ask you approve the subdivision to exceed the block length standards, and we ask you adopt the applicant's stipulations as submitted in their findings of fact. And with that, we can take any more questions that you have.
Are there any other questions for staff? All right, thank you, Dustin. All right, we will open the public hearing, and can we please hear from the applicant or their agent?
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Jay Harlan with CSA Planning and AKS Company with offices at 4497 Brown Ridge. We represent the applicant and owner of this project. As usual, staff did a good job explaining the project. Property's planned and zoned for the use. All the lots meet the development standards. So basically Oregon law says if you meet the development standards and you're planned and zoned for residential use, and unless there's a zoning condition like something related to traffic, but this site is capped and we're under the cap, then the Planning Commission should approve it, or needs to. I will speak to the access issue briefly. It took a little bit when that came up at LD to just do the title work that needed to be done, but there is a letter in the record today from Joe Kellerman based upon title research done by a First American Title Company, and their opinion is that this property, there's an existing easement that can be used to provide the necessary access. The focus was on the Pacific Core piece because that's Pacific Core real estate. Sometimes, you know, we work with them all the time and you get stuff done, but it can be slow. But their opinion is that easement is adequate for to be improved and be used consistent with the fire code. Sort of the sidebar conversation was that there's probably an existing easement as well through the Yonsor piece, but the project owner and Yonsors are friends, and so rather than, like, it's an old easement, so rather than sort of doing the dance of trying to show that the existing easement there is adequate, probably we'll just do a new easement in sort of modern surveyed, modern lawyer language to remove any ambiguity with respect to that. So as it concerns secondary access to meet fire code for the separated second access, we think that's perfectly feasible condition, and we think we probably have legal rights to meet it now, and it may require some improvements, some turnouts, stuff like that, but that's all pretty doable. So I actually think it's a benefit by having, because the other development properties didn't come out. This is coming out of a property that was benefited by that easement, and there's actually the existing streets, public street networks actually have the 1 foot, you know, spike strip at the end of the right-of-way in order to meet the fire code. Then that will go away, and the whole area will be able to benefit from that easement and that additional access. So that's, you know, I think overall it's going to be beneficial in that way. I mean, I do understand the concerns about, you know, traffic. And as far as the construction traffic, I agree with Public Works. I don't think the city can impose that. But in my experience, the construction traffic, if there's a good road that has to meet all weather surfaces for big fire trucks, they'd rather use that than the, you know, than the city street. Because as Mr. Burrows said, if it gets damaged, they might have to They might get cited and have to do some repairs to it. So I think that's probably for construction the preferred option. So those are my comments, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions that the commission has.
Are there any questions of the applicant? Yes, Commissioner McKechnie.
Hi, Jay, with all your rambling there, I'm a little confused. Are you telling me that the owner of the property is agreeing that Panorama Drive would be upgraded to an all-weather access?
I think it's pretty close now. Yeah, so they would make some improvements.
No, I mean as a stipulation for approval of this.
The fire marshal's going to require it. It's not a stipulation, it's going to be required.
Well, I understand that, but I just wanted to make sure that you're okay with that.
Yep,
Okay.
we know we have to do that, and we're going to do it.
Okay, all right,
The main issue was, did we have an easement?
yeah.
Was it going to, how long and what was going to be involved getting an easement, especially through the P-Corps piece, and based upon the lawyer's research, the existing easement's adequate.
Well, the piece we got from Joe Kellerman is pretty clearly about the Pacific Power parcel, but that doesn't abut the parcel we're talking about.
Correct. The
There's
other
another
piece
one.
is owned by the Yonsers, and the Yonsers, I think, have a good relationship with the developer. So they also think the existing easement is adequate for that, but it'll probably be easier, like I said, to just make a new modern easement.
I would think that's probably
That's
wise.
that's not uncommon.
So then, the site plan that we're seeing would be modified some. I'm looking at the plan, and it looks like we have a sidewalk that runs on the entire south end of Cadet, so we'd end up with some way to get an access onto Panorama. Right? The A Street looks like it would be a T with the end of Panorama. Would we have a modification there so you can actually get in?
Yeah, there's an existing driveway that serves.
Yeah, but
an
you
existing
have ignored that on your plan, so. I see a sidewalk that runs down,
Oh, you mean that there's not a curb cut there?
yeah,
Yeah, there's a public improvement plan, and I suspect that, I agree, that will need to be addressed.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right. That's it for me.
All right. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you. You reserve time for rebuttal? Yes?
Reserve time?
You reserve time? Okay. Are there any persons in the audience that would like to speak regarding this application? Please come forward. If you haven't already done so, please sign in. When you get to the podium, please state your name and your address clearly for the record. And if you haven't already signed in, please feel free to speak first, sign in second, just as long as we get you on the record.
Greetings, Commissioners. My name is Paul Christie. I'm a 9-year resident of Annapolis Drive. I'd like to begin by asking for a show of hands of Commissioners who've been up to visit this site. I would urge you to take a look. Drive up there on a great day, a clear day. A drive up Normal Terrace is absolutely beautiful, great city views, clear sight all the way across the valley. On an evening where the fog rolls in and it's dark, it's absolutely nightmarishly frightening. You are driving down a street where only 50% of Normal Terrace is marked with lines. You've got a sharp drop-off on one side, you've got no guardrails, and no city-provided marking at all. I would invite you to drive at night and during the day. It's quite frightening. I don't know anybody up where we live who is concerned at all about advanced development. We welcome more people to move in. We welcome more places available for them to move in. What I'm concerned about is the city itself has not adequately mitigated the risk of access to this new property. Normal Terrace is a substandard road, and you've heard many things, and we've heard in the audience many things for the first time tonight about what's being planned. All that's great. I think we'd like to see it in a vote on paper. We'd like to see it delivered to us so that we could enjoy it as well. One real-world example, last summer, a service vehicle came up the road, failed to negotiate one of those 2 hairpin turns and got stuck. For 6 hours, myself, my family, and everyone who lives up there were unable to get in or out. Ambulances, fire vehicles, no one was able to access this property. It's great to hear that there might be a private easement through to this other road. If you go there now, there's a 9-foot private road sign that says keep out. On the other side, there's multiple no trespassing signs. Current residents have no idea that there's an easement that would allow fire vehicles to get up there. I've heard, and you've heard, lots of plans for doing that tonight. I hope those come into place, but please do not approve this new project without getting those firmly on paper and firmly decided. That's what we'd ask. Thank you.
You'd already signed in, sir.
Hi, I'm Charles Holmgren. We've lived up there for approximately 10 years on the corner of Cadet and Admiral. Listening to the fire, whatever, talking about this panorama road, which is basically a farm road, rutted, it's barely 20 feet wide, and looking at the code, it seems like this is supposed to be required to be paved. I don't hear any of that, particularly from the person who is representing the developer. Hopefully this will be a requirement before you, okay, I'm not opposed to this as long as we have a way of getting out of there. A second part of this is they won't allow school buses full size to go up Normal Terrace because of the windiness. We've had a full-size snowplow tip over on Normal Terrace. And if you think 90 or 100 people could get out of there in a hurry, I think you're not really understanding the situation. But really, the main thing is safety for us. We're not opposed to it, or I'm not opposed to it. But that silly road on Panorama, that is not, you know, I've never seen a full-size fire truck up there. And I would love to see a fire truck come up that road, because it is not, it's basically a farm road. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Krikorian, and I live on Annapolis Drive. And I wasn't planning on getting up and talking tonight. I did write a letter, but when you started talking about Normal Terrace, it can get very foggy up there. As you know, it gets foggy in this valley. I grew up in the Central Valley of California, so I know fog. I know how to drive in fog. You depend on the lines at the side of the road and in the middle of the road. And they're usually reflective, so as you're driving down the street, you can see where you are. Well, there's nothing on that one section, well, most of the section of Annapolis Drive. I remember going home one night from Thanksgiving. I was terrified because there is a drop on the right-hand side. I'm surprised I didn't fall off the road. I made it home, thank God. But something has to be done about that, too. It's just not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry? Oh, what'd I do?
Good evening,
All right.
Commissioners. My name is Richard Miles, 1834 Basalt Drive. Our house is actually on the corner of Basalt and Cadet, and our driveway will be right across the street from the new homes. And like several of my neighbors have said, we're not necessarily opposed to new neighbors and new people up there. We have a very welcoming community and very friendly neighbors. Safety is the #1 concern, and you do have a letter from me in there. I just wanted to accentuate what my neighbor Charles said about the hairpin turns in the school buses. I am a retired Medford educator, worked in the school district as a school principal and as a district office administrator, and so I'm very cognizant of school buses and school safety. No one has really mentioned the fact that people do walk Normal Terrace. They take their lives in their hands walking it because there are no sidewalks. They pointed out one little tiny bit of improvement, which is absolutely worthless, a little chunk of sidewalk along Normal Terrace. If you come up there, you will laugh when you see it because it is of no use. But people do walk up and down, and what I have noticed with school children, we do have some up in the neighborhood, and I imagine many parents drive their kids to school because of the hazards of the road, but some do take the school bus, and the school bus stop is right at the bottom of Normal Terrace, and cars pull into the driveways there at the bottom of the hill to drop off their kids and pick them up, and the kids stand alongside the road with no spot to wait for the bus. There is no safe spot at all for them. Adding 26 more homes up there, especially if they're middle homes, tract homes, as Mr. Snyder has been building in town, that's going to bring more children. And the safety issues are going to compound for our school children in this area. There are no sidewalks for them to walk on to get down to the school bus. A school bus cannot fit around those hairpin turns, and I would question whether a fire truck could. I have had to stop on the road on my way down to let a long vehicle span that hairpin turn. We have to come to a complete stop. It is not safe at all, and it does not meet city standards, as has been said over and over. One other issue regarding the fire, I was really shocked to hear the 30 house limit without having a second access. There are currently 75 homes up there with only one access, 45 over the standard required for a second access. Why was my neighborhood where I live actually allowed? Yes, we have sprinklers, but as you heard, they are going to only be good if the fire starts within my house. I feel much safer with them, and it helps my insurance rates, but it's not going to help in a wildfire. Also regarding two egresses is it'll only depend on where the fire starts. It's going to be either south of our neighborhood or east, and going east to get out, to go up to Panorama may not be an option. We may only have to go downhill. Lots of what ifs, but it is not safe. Please take that into consideration.
Rich,
Thank
did
you.
you state your address for the record?
1834 Basalt Drive.
Thank you. Please remind, sign in
I
if you
did.
could.
I
Okay,
did.
thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Please hold your applause. Decorum.
Hello, my name is Carol Bogadane, and I live on 3503 Admiral Way on the corner of Admiral Way and Cadet. Charles Holmgren's my husband and has already spoken. I want to make a few comments because I'm one of those walkers in the neighborhood that has been almost hit a couple times. I know where people speed. There's no speed limit signs up in that neighborhood, not even as you enter up Normal Terrace. People who live up their speed, people who live up on Panorama Drive and use our road, but we can't use their road, they speed. Being on the corner of Admiral Way and Cadet, we see the cars every single day. And it's not just the people who live there, it's the landscapers, the housekeepers, the DoorDash, the Uber, all the different people that come up there in a day. There's so many cars, and I would question that a 2018 survey is really that accurate, because almost everybody has some kind of service person coming up to their home, whether it's just the 2 cars that most people have in their driveway. There's additional people that come up there constantly, and it is dangerous. I have a dog. I walk that dog every day. And I have to worry about him and me as we're trying to walk up those roads. I want to talk about the fog also and the striping, because just this week I have been almost sideswiped going around the curves. If you take those curves any faster than 5 to 10 miles an hour and another car is coming, you have a good chance of an accident happening. And we really do need the striping down the middle as well as on the sides, because when you go up there during the winter, when there is fog, you cannot see where the edge of that embankment is up on that road. He had the picture up there earlier. So those would be things, and then my last comment would be that if we're gonna, well, I think there needs to be the second road, as has already been mentioned, but this needs to happen before the building starts, so that if there is a fire up there, and you know, this is gonna be, this for me personally is a particularly scary season because we haven't had much snow or rain, and we are in a high fire area, and I really worry about all of my neighbors and myself getting out of there. And 26 more homes is only going to complicate that. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking. Please, gentle people of the audience, please refrain from any outburst. Have you signed in? I did. Thank you.
I'll sign in afterwards. Hi, my name is Scott Kincaid. I'm one of the residents, 1836 Plateau. Been up there for several years now. Wasn't planning on speaking until I heard about the lack of sprinklers going into the new builds. Part of the reason why we bought up there was the quality of homes, and the home builder who built for us said, you guys have sprinklers, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I wasn't even thinking about that. 26, 27 additional homes without an interior sprinkler system. Yes, I'm concerned about the wildfire coming down the hill, but fire is going to start from inside and spread without the sprinkler system. So I don't know if this is the forum to say this out loud, but I thought I'd voice my opinion. If there's a way to include at least sprinklers in the new builds, that might make my mind a little bit more at ease. But otherwise, I just feel like those homes might not be of the same quality of the homes that are already up there in that general area, and therefore pose more of a fire risk from the internal side of things versus the external as well. So thank you for listening to my concerns. Thanks.
Thank you. Be sure and sign in. I'm getting really tired of reminding you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward and speak on this application?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Chuck McCullough. I live at 3390 Annapolis Drive. I've heard tonight some testimony, and I was anticipating there's been some confusion or misunderstandings as to what the situation is in our neighborhood, especially as it pertains to Normal Terrace. And also, I've heard the new panorama road access is viable. So this morning I went out with my four-wheel drive truck and drove up Cadet, and I drove onto the panorama drive access in my truck. Also, in my submission, I incorporated 5 photos, which I invite you to look at, of this Normal Terrace as well as panorama. Panorama is not a viable road. It's a farm road, and I included photos of it. Potholes, barely navigable, well-posted, private property, no trespassing. This is at the top of Cadet. Barely manageable to, and I don't know anything about a 33-foot width. At the other end of Panorama Drive, more signs, more postings, private property, no access. The other roads, 6-foot, 8-foot signs, private road, no trespassing, right? Here's another sign on the road, stop, no access. And I invite you to review my submission and take a close look at the photos of what the actual conditions are, as opposed to some of the comments that have been made tonight. As far as Normal Terrace, we've heard a lot of discussion today about the lack of striping, fog, and those types of situations, and no center line. Because Normal Terrace is so dangerous in the wintertime with fog, the citizens on the hill have taken it upon themselves to buy and place cautionary candlesticks along the side of the road where it drops off. These were not provided by the city. They were not installed by the city. They were installed by the residents on the hill to help us in the fog to see where the drop-off is on the side. Okay? So there's the candlesticks. There's additional Normal Terrace. No striping, no fog lines, candlesticks, markers, provided by the citizens for their own safety. So I want to clarify, Normal Terrace does not meet the city's own engineering standards for streets. It does not meet ODOT standards, nor does it meet AWPA, American Association of Public Works standards. That's the entire length of Normal Terrace. How these houses were built, why they were permitted to be built with a street that does not meet the city's own standards is unbelievable. It's been mentioned that there's 2 hairpin corners on this road, Normal Terrace. I have a house trailer. To clarify, it's a single lane road if you're towing a trailer. You have to stop at each hairpin corner, wait for all traffic coming down, wait till it's clear so you can maneuver around each of those 2 hairpin corners.
If you could finish up your comments, I'd appreciate it. If you could finish up,
I would like for the the Planning Commission to consider that, to make sure that Normal Terrace is brought up to the city codes and the ODOT standards before this development is approved.
Thank you for speaking. Did you sign in?
I signed in earlier.
Thank you very much.
Mr. McCullough, could you leave the pictures? I don't know if any of the other.
Mine didn't download.
Yeah, so could you leave those and submit them to?
They were included in my submission today.
I guess I would say they didn't come through.
Yeah, they weren't in the attachments.
My email included the pictures.
I'm saying we did not get them, so could you leave those printed pictures and then we could.
The email I received, they didn't get downloaded. So if you could leave those, is that all right with you?
Sure.
Thank you.
And I'd be willing to provide more.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to come forward and speak on this application? Anyone else coming forward? Yes, sir. Come on in.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if they've heard you before.
I'm sorry?
Concerning the clapping, I'm not sure if they all have heard you.
Yeah, I've said it a couple times.
Good evening. My name is Robert Erickson. I live at 3430 Cadet Drive with my wife, Roseanne. We're new to the neighborhood. Very happy to be there. We moved in October. And relative to Normal Terrace, trust me, when the United Van Lines truck pulled up, apparently he gave my daughter, who met him, an earful about not telling him about Normal Terrace. It was a bit of a trick to make it up. So that's tied to any type of large vehicle that would go up there. The other thing was relative to the traffic study that was done, and I think the year was 2018 or 2019. I don't know what the basis was for that in terms of the dwellings that would be built in any new subdivision, but what I'm hearing tonight is it's single-family homes. When I sent in my questions to Dustin, he was very kind and gave me quick answers. It was helpful, but one of them was, how do you assure what type of dwelling the developer will put up? What I looked at their website, and another type of building Zoom site, he's not built anything from what I saw of in excess of $500,000. Granted, they're nice homes. We have nice homes. We're happy there. We don't mind having new neighbors. Back to the traffic, though, if you're planning on 2 cars per single-family home, but in the case of the developer, he's showing some homes in Central Point that it appeared to be duplexes. They were additional dwelling units. So you could add another party onto that property. You might have 3 cars per home. I don't know what kinds of homes are being considered. I've seen no renderings. Dustin said it might be premature in the consideration of this, but it's not premature in planning how you're going to handle the traffic involvement. Also, at the corner of North Foothill Road and Normal Terrace, as they were saying, there's nowhere for kids, and if there is additional traffic there, currently at rush hours, it's hard to make a left turn to get onto North Foothill Road. There don't seem to be any kinds of area to make a turning lane there. So I'm not sure exactly how that would be handled, if it's even compatible for a traffic light. That's one consideration. But if that could be explored or explained further by Dustin, that would be very helpful tonight. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Sign in if you could. Thank you. Sir, go ahead and speak first, and then we can have you sign in later.
Hi, my name is Bruce Cook. I wasn't planning to speak. I just want to, I don't want to rehash everything, but I do want to add 2 points to mainly the students and the kids that live on the Hill. A number of those young kids walk down the road that we're talking about, Normal, which is basically a 1-lane road under certain circumstances. There's no sidewalk except for somebody mentioned one of the gentlemen mentioned the sidewalk at the first hairpin, or I guess it'd be the second hairpin. That sidewalk runs maybe 100 feet, and that's it. So there's no way safely for the kids to walk down. I can only imagine when the construction starts. Second thing I wanted to mention is I called the Student First, or First Student, I believe it is, the company that services the buses. And I asked them if there was an ODOT or a city mandate that prohibited them from driving up Normal up to our area. And I was told, no, we just use common sense and don't drive up there. That's exactly what they told me. So I'll sign in. Thank you.
Very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else in the audience wish to come forward and speak? Okay. Seeing no one else come forward. Let's see here. Does the applicant wish to have rebuttal?
Can we go through staff first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please,
I
Mr. Chair,
apologize.
thank you.
Staff have anything to add?
Good evening, Tanner again. And I'll clarify my title this time, Fire Marshal for Medford Fire. Apologize for not mentioning that before. Fire Marshal, whatever, works also. I thought that was kind of funny. So a couple things, really appreciate the really good comments from the citizens that live here, from the people in this community. It reminded me that I've been in the exact situation of buying a home in perfect conditions and, envisioning kids playing in the backyard, not thinking about how those conditions might be different times of the year. So anyway, it just kind of reminded me that, when homes are being bought, not everyone is considering what living there is going to be like in different times of the year, in different situations. So I say that to kind of go back to the wildfire piece. I would imagine that some people, purchase homes in this area, not realizing, maybe not understanding fully some of the wildfire risks. I really appreciate some of the comments on, I think it was Mr. Miles and Scott on sprinklers. It's a challenging situation to stand up here and say, rather than sprinklering the homes, I think it would be better to provide 2 access points. I'll provide some clarification on that. So again, the standard national codes require sprinklers in homes. There's several states, most states remove that as a minimum requirement. It's a great point that having sprinklers inside homes in a wildfire risk area, it does provide a benefit that if a fire starts inside of a home, it reduces the chance of it spreading outside of the home into other homes and other parts of the community, which is why it's also listed as a requirement in the International Wildfire Urban Interface Code. That said, basically, the process for sprinklering some of these homes was not a requirement out of the fire code. It was the fire department saying, hey, access is not met because there's only a single access. 2 access points should be required. And the decision being made to sprinkler homes instead. I kind of talked previously about there's an exception for having more than 30 homes on a single access as long as the homes are sprinklered. That requirement says all dwellings taking access off that single access have to be sprinklered. It also doesn't have a limit. And the reason for that, it goes back to the original part of the code, which says multiple access points are required and needed when there's potential for congestion, blockage, that sort of thing. So I say all that to say it's kind of making a choice, but we're at the point where, in our opinion, 2 access points is really, really important for both the people living in this community and for us to get up there if one of those access points gets blocked. I've driven this area multiple times. Also appreciate some of the comments on Panorama. I wanted to kind of take a step back. So there was comments on the signs, comments on the access. Just to clarify my understanding, and Dustin can correct me if I'm wrong here, but what we would be doing here tonight is saying for this development to move forward, we're placing a condition saying that before it gets platted, there's a requirement to provide an approved second access. Approved meaning that the signage would have to be removed saying it's private and they can't use it. It would have to meet access requirements, so we would have to approve that that's an acceptable access. So basically what I'm trying to say is we're not saying that the way it is right now is good enough. We're placing the condition that if this project moves forward, prior to final plat, it has to meet those requirements. Final plat has to be approved before they can get building permits and actually start constructing homes. So it would effectively, I think, address some of the concerns of they can't start building homes until we've gotten approved access. I think that covers most of it. I think the other comment I wanted to mention was there was concerns about fire apparatus going up Panorama. We've worked towards shorter engines, lighter engines. We also have 2 different size brush trucks. They can all get up that road. It likely does need some maintenance. There might be some potholes that have formed since the last time I was up there. If there's more traffic, it is going to need more maintenance. That's just the way it is. Once people realize that they can use that access, it's going to degrade it faster and it's going to require more maintenance. So maintenance of it will be necessary and needed so that people can safely use it. I think that covers it unless there's more questions for me.
Any questions of Fire Marshal? Nope.
Mr.
Right.
Chair,
Yes.
if I might.
Yes.
So I'm Kelly Aiken with the Planning Department. Tanner, just because you don't require sprinklers, does that mean that they cannot provide sprinklers?
Absolutely not. Thank you. I meant to mention that. So it would be great if sprinklers were provided. I just can't require 2 access points. And I can't even require sprinklers. That's a building department role and requirement. So a lot of times when sprinklers get required, it's because access cannot be met for a variety of different reasons. And so one of the solutions is to provide sprinklers. In this case, the second access can be required, and it's kind of critical at this point. Thank you for the reminder, Kelly.
Any other questions of Fire Marshal? Okay. Any other questions of staff? Yeah, Commissioner Pulver.
Mr. Burrows, could you come back up? Is that possible? Okay. Thanks, Doug.
Doug Burrows, Public Works.
So 2 things. One, I was hoping you could repeat what you mentioned earlier about if the citizens were hoping for some additional striping or other things in relation to Normal Terrace, what that process is to make that request and
Yeah,
go through the process.
no problem at all. And I mean, we've all driven on foggy roads. Striping is pretty important when you're in a foggy road situation, so I can understand that. So, excuse me, the process would be, the best process is, and I'll definitely take these comments back so our transportation folks are aware of that. Like I said, there is some limited fog line and center line, but it's definitely not all the way through. On our website, under the Public Works page, there's a button you can click towards the top for a citizen request, and that is where you can put in your request. I would recommend being as specific as possible, and then that will get excuse me, evaluated and looked at, And I think it eventually goes to the Transportation Committee, and they can look at those things and make a determination. If some reason that is not in their favor and they want to pursue it further, then they can take that to City Council, and then Council could, if they are in favor of it, direct us to add that striping. We don't typically stripe lower order streets. That just doesn't happen, but this is not your typical lower order street. So, it can make some sense here.
So my second thing was, and I don't want to make you try to speculate. That's not my intent. But if I understand correctly, zone change already occurred on the greater overall property, but with the restriction with the trip cap restriction, which is kind of what we're dealing with today, and so that if they want to develop more of the property, they have to do an additional traffic study, is my understanding. What I'm trying to get at is, the undeveloped property, or the property that they're talking about today, and the surrounding area isn't on Normal Terrace. And so most of the improvements we see that are required as a result of development are on or immediately adjacent to a piece of property that's being developed. I guess what I'm really getting at in your experience is do you see with any sort of regularity off-site improvements, like in this situation where the property's here, a road that may or may not be up to a certain standard is here, and additional development might trigger?
I have. Yeah,
okay.
saw with Panorama Heights. Yeah, same exact thing.
Okay.
But that was, I think, through the TIA, has identified issues or things that need to be accommodated. So that's the process. The TIA will look at that. It should look at trips going on Normal Terrace and see what it does to that road, specifically the intersection with Foothill, which is, I'm sure, hopefully everyone would agree, way better than it was. Still might, have issues at certain times of day getting in and out, but definitely nicer to have that left turn in there and a lane to pull into as you're getting out, turning south. So, yeah, that's, and then we'll look at other intersections as well. The TIA will see if there's any failures at other intersections with major higher order streets.
But it's predominantly intersection driven?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Primarily.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner McKechnie?
Yes, Doug.
Yes.
A couple more questions. So we've heard a lot of testimony tonight that Normal Terrace is below standard. Have you, Public Works, done any verification of that, or is it actually wide enough, and it's just got a couple of sharp turns on it, or what's up with it?
I mean, I could point to a lot of streets in the city of Medford that are below standard. It just depends what one you're trying to meet. This one, yeah, it doesn't have curb and gutter, obviously.
Yeah.
Doesn't have sidewalk, that's obvious. Doesn't have park strips, probably never will, that's obvious. Is it wide enough? I don't know what the width of this road is. Are the turns right? The turns are what they have to be, right, to get up the hill at this point. Like I said, this was built in the county, and, I don't know what standards they were built to at that time. Those turns are sharp. I went up there today. They're very sharp turns. I felt like the road surface was pretty decent for most of it, not all of it, but yeah, they're very sharp turns. So I could see why there's a length limit, which is, like I said, is 40 feet. School buses is about 35 to 45 feet. So depending on the school bus, yeah, they shouldn't be going up there. Weight limits 25 tons. That's 55,000 pounds. So yeah, there's certain vehicles that just shouldn't go up that street. I was told there are exceptions occasionally to the weight limit, but it would probably be for a specific time, I would think, and that doesn't mean it's a definite yes. So is it below standards? I mean, yeah, obviously it is, but so is any street without curb and gutter.
No, well, there's quite a few of those.
This one might have a few more non-standard things, right? I don't know what the slopes are on the street, longitudinal slopes, but there's a couple pretty steep sections going up there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one other question regarding new subdivisions. So isn't it true that the city requires that all the public infrastructure be constructed and approved prior to construction of dwelling units?
Yes.
And in this case, wouldn't that mean that there'd have to be an all-weather access connection from Panorama Drive to be able to make
For
that
fire? I think I'll let Mr. Farrington answer that. I believe he said that would have to be done prior to final plat. I don't know if they could bond for that, but all, all the public streets, and I do not include that in the public street category. It's still a private access road that's gonna have an emergency access easement over it for fire department and for the residents to get in and out too. It's not open to be used. It probably shouldn't be used every day, just for general access. Not that there would be anything preventing someone from doing that either. But yeah, I'll let Mr. Farrington talk about that. The other improvements to their streets will have to be done prior to issuance of any building permit on that site. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask one of Doug really quick before you disappear?
Sure.
This is more of one for Doug and possibly Kelly to tell me if I'm out of line. Is there any latitude for this body to make that recommendation to the traffic committee? I know we can't stipulate that the applicant make it, but put in the request for striping?
I don't know. I mean, anyone can make the request, so I would think you guys could too, but I don't know what format that would take. Any thoughts, Kelly?
No, I don't have any thoughts on that. I mean, we can take it back to our own traffic folks, take a look at.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that. I'm going to do it anyway, so
Okay.
whether you want me to or not, I'm going to talk to him about it.
Thank
So.
you. All right, Commissioner McKechnie, did you have more questions of staff? Okay. Any other, oh yes, Commissioner Bennett.
I'd like Chief to go first, then I have a question for planning.
Okay. Tanner again. So to follow up, grades are 7-8% for a good chunk of normal terrace and up to 10%. So pretty steep grades, maybe even over 10%. Panorama's the same, 9-10% on portions of it. I mean, this is a hilly, steep area. The curves are really tight. The points are dead on. So you've got the combination of grades, cross slopes, super tight curves. The roadway is wider. I think it's like 35 up to 40 feet at the curves, which helps, but it's still not enough to where two vehicles can pass at the same time. So, which is part of the reason why we're requiring a second access is if we're trying to come in while other people are coming out, we're going to be stuck at Foothill waiting for all those vehicles to get down before we can get up and start working on putting a fire out. That time delay, we try to keep fires small. If we can't do that, the longer it takes to get up there, the less likely we are to do that. For the second access, my understanding is it would be required to be done, approved before final plat gets issued. And final plat has to get issued before they can apply for building permits. So that would help with that. And the last thing I was going to say, I want people using both access points. There's kind of a human behavior thing where the route that people always take is the route that they're always going to take. So same thing inside of buildings. The way you come in, something happens, you panic, you go out the same way you came in, which is why we want this to be gated, why we want it to be a public access, and that way both ways are getting used in practice so that if something happens, people are used to using both.
Yeah, thanks.
No, for staff. You have a question for Dustin?
I do have a question for Dustin. I think I know, but I want to be clear on the record. So it sounds like the plan for development is 25 single-family residences, and the 26th lot is for retention, et cetera.
Correct.
With the trip cap in place and in consideration of middle housing being permitted, if two of those lots or one of those lots developed additional units as they're allowed, once they hit that 28 doors, the next one to develop would trigger a need for a new TIA. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, that's my question. Thanks.
So just to follow on that. So that would be if it's a duplex. If it's an ADU, is an ADU count as an additional unit? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
for middle housing.
So it's.
So they got 3 left. Once they put
Three,
a single-family
right.
home
So
on
they could
each,
do
they
3
got 3.
duplexes or 3 units with ADUs, and that's it.
I'd say it's probably more likely we see 3 lots with an accessory dwelling unit, and then they'd be maxed out.
Yeah,
in the
okay.
28.
Does that also include existing residences up there?
No.
Okay,
No,
it's only this develop.
Correct.
Got it. Any other questions of staff? Any questions of council? Any additions from Kelly?
Yeah, if I might, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm Kelly Aiken with your Planning Department. So a couple things I wanted to mention. Mr. Harlan mentioned our responsibility to be mindful of the approval criteria. Would you mind putting the criteria back up, please? Thank you. So there are 6 approval criteria for land divisions. And the way the land use system works is if a development meets the approval criteria, the commission has a responsibility to approve or conditionally approve the project. And what conditions do is that they make sure that the development meets those approval criteria. So we've heard a couple different times already that those approval criteria need to be met before the final plat can be approved and filed, and then that has to happen before development can occur. So the other thing I wanted to mention, I think off the cuff, Mr. Harlan mentioned spike strips at the end of our dead-end streets. That's not what happens. There's no ejection buttons at the end of our dead-end streets. I thought that was kind of funny. I think that's all that I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. I'm assuming you'd like some rebuttal time. Please come forward.
Again, for the record, Jay Harlan. Yes, it's not a spike strip. I can't remember the word. What's the 1-foot word there? The street plug. It's a street plug, right? But for access purposes, it's a spike strip. You're not supposed to go over it. People do. But so I don't have a lot to add. I guess just overall, like, I appreciate all the testimony. This is one of the challenges of where the city is extending existing county infrastructure, right? And that's not uncommon. It happens all over the city. I live in Southwest Medford. We moved into that house in 2002, and it's been going on in Southwest Medford for the entire time I've lived there. It's not done yet, and it's going to go on and some of those, at least in this instance, the city has taken jurisdiction, right? Like, for example, Orchard Home Court is a local access road with no jurisdiction, yet it has a bunch of city traffic on it because that's kind of the back way for a lot of people to get over to the South Medford High School. So I think that's just one of the challenges. I would say some of the safety things I heard, there's some pretty cost-effective things that the city could look at doing, and Mr. Burrows mentioned them in terms of, especially to deal with the lighting and foggy conditions, right? To get more reflectivity to know where the edge of the road is. And I think that's something, that going through the process that Mr. Burrows mentioned is something that would make a big difference. And I think we've all driven on roads that have those and don't have it, and it definitely helps a lot in those conditions. So as Kelly mentioned, I don't think that really has a lot to do with the criteria. We meet the criteria, and we will do the second access per the fire district's requirement. I have no doubt that there's going to need to be upgrades to the physical infrastructure, but the civil lawyer who deals with easements and the title company both said we think there's sufficient legal basis to do it, so it's really a matter of just doing the improvements that satisfy that all-weather surface for emergency access. So, and I think that's a benefit. So with that, I'm happy to answer any final questions that the commission has.
Any questions of the applicant? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we will close the public hearing, and is there a motion for consideration?
Mr. Chair, I move we adopt the findings as recommended by staff and direct staff to prepare a final order for approval of LDS-26-014 per the staff report dated April 2, 2026, including Exhibits A through HH, approval for the subdivision to exceed block length perimeter standards pursuant to MLDC 10-426-4B6, as well as relief from constructing a public access way in lieu of a public street pursuant to MLDC 10-4641, and adoption of the applicant's stipulations as stated in the submitted findings of fact and conclusions of law, which is Exhibit B, as cited below. Prior to any grading or construction permits, applicant shall submit final grading and engineering plans to be reviewed by City of Medford Public Works. and all public and private improvements shall be installed in a manner consistent with Section 4, findings of fact, and as illustrated on the tentative subdivision plat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes, Commissioner McKechnie.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable if we had an additional condition that said that they need to provide an all-weather and a second all-weather access unless it's specifically called out in the required conditions, and I didn't see it, so.
Is it not part of
The
the
filed marshal's report? Well, let's get, if we can get a clarification that, I mean, I've heard different things from, I'm looking for all-weather access for local residents as well as emergency vehicles. And I heard emergency vehicles from the applicant, but I didn't hear all-weather access for people, for residents, and that's something that you wanted to have included.
Sure. So I would say you could add it. If it works all-weather for us with our heavier vehicles, it should work all-weather for everyone. Our fire engines aren't four-wheel drive, they're two-wheel drive, they're heavy, so that gives more traction in some cases. But it needs to be a relatively smooth gravel road that holds up in all weather conditions. So there's kind of some general information in the fire code that says, yeah, it's got to hold up during weather, it's got to drain, it's got to meet all that. So, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't, I guess, add another requirement.
Is there a, yes, Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could clarify, Commissioner McKechnie, so your question is it a fire easement or an emergency access easement for public safety, or is it a public easement? Is that your question?
Yes, I guess I'm looking to make sure that it's a public easement that anybody could use.
And that's what,
I mean, the fire department, it's a fire department requirement, but they're also requesting that also be available for local residents, and I think that's an excellent idea.
that was the request so that they can use it and be out of the way before we get there, so we're not waiting
Right.
To be able to respond. And so I will say, I believe the information that was sent, it was recorded as a public easement, and that I believe, and the applicant can probably speak to it, but I believe the intent is for it to be not only emergency access, but public access as well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So
Commissioner Thomas.
I'm confused because I need clarity, because I heard you say the last time you were up here is that, hey, I want this access to be what residents use so they get trained to use it when there's an emergency. But what I'm hearing is, no, this is going to be emergency access only, and so there may be some restrictions on the public going up. So I cannot support approval of this project unless there's clarity in the motion about this being public access roads, after hearing you say how critical it is that we train the public to use the road to come and go, because in an emergency, that's what their brain's gonna do. Is that what you said and recommend?
Yeah, so it's intended to be a public access easement for the purposes of emergency access. If it works for us, it should work for the rest of the.
But that's not
public.
what I'm seeing in what's being proposed. So I just either want us to change the motion, or I'm a no. So I just want to be clear on that.
Okay. Commissioner McKechnie, do you have any more?
No, I'm happy to make that amendment if
Yes,
that's
please.
what. I'm sorry? Yes, please?
I would love to hear a
Oh,
friendly
yes,
amendment. and then
okay,
we'll see
that
if
we add a condition that requires a second all-weather access to this, for this project.
Public?
Public, sorry, public.
All right. Does the motioner and the second agree to the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Can I ask a comment or question?
Yes.
Before we either approve it or don't? I mean, I don't know what the term all-weather means. I mean, I understand conceptually what that means, but I don't know if that's a defined term, you know, like, you know, I don't know if anything's all-weather, to be honest. So I think that's one question I have. I was trying to find the conditions of approval too, to see if we're confusing the issue or clarifying the issue. So, yeah, I mean, it references back to the fire deal, so that's fine. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Okay.
All
So
right.
the motion's been accepted, or the amendment has been accepted.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vesco, did you have a question?
Actually, my question was very similar to Commissioner Pulver's, is that I also wanted to know what the definition of all access. Are we talking about a paved road, or are we talking about a gravel road?
Gravel road.
Gravel road, okay. And my understanding is it's mostly paved up to except the last part of it, is that right?
Not on.
I don't think so.
It's
I
not?
think it's gravel all the way up
Panorama's gravel.
from once you leave
Yeah.
Lone Pine.
Okay. I really like the idea of making it a public road, because to me, that's very important for this to
That's
have
part
this
of his
second,
amendment.
right? But if it's a gravel road and there's gonna be a appreciable amount of traffic on it, it's gonna be a dust issue and everything else. That's my one concern, if it's not paved. So I'm not sure if we're stretching this thing too far out or what, but.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think a lot of people are going to necessarily use it because it doesn't really go directly to where you want to go. But if there was some issue like the moving truck that got stuck for 6 hours and you had another way to get out, people would do that.
Yeah.
So,
Commissioner Bennett?
I think as a point of clarity, we're asking for public access, not necessarily a public road. This is not something that the city is going to maintain. It is just that we are allowing public access, not on an emergency-only basis. Correct?
Correct.
correct.
Okay,
All-weather road.
gotcha. All right. I can live with that.
Clear as mud? Any other discussion on the motion and the amendment?
Chair.
Yes,
Mr.
Commissioner
Farrington,
Pulver?
I have something to
Oh,
say.
sorry.
I've just got some additional information if it helps. So Oregon Fire Code, Section 503.2.3, surface fire apparatus access road shall be designed and maintained to support the imposed loads of fire apparatus and shall be surfaced so as to provide all-weather driving capabilities. We allow that to be gravel. That was kind of the intent so that they don't have the exorbitant cost of paving and try to not provide a second access. So that was kind of the intent. So I think by adding public combined with emergency access, meeting all weather, I think those combinations should hopefully get us there. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Thomas?
Just have a question for staff then. So if it's public access and it's not a public road, who maintains it?
Property owner?
What property owners? Well, I mean, that's what we do a lot of is we just go.
Doug?
And I really, really, really want to understand that once the development's done and the developer does his job, he's not going to maintain it.
Did I hear my name? I'm sorry, this is Doug with
Yes,
Public
Mr.
Works
Burrows,
again.
please join
So
us.
I'm just looking
Thought I heard
for
someone call my name.
clarity
I think
on
you
what if
volunteered.
If it's
I'll
not
be
gonna
here.
a
I kind of
public
want to say
street,
some anyway,
then who's
so.
gonna access it?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Public Works will not maintain it. I'll also tell you something else, and I apologize because I feel like Mr. Farrington and I may have had some miscommunication or misunderstanding about this particular road. If we approve a public access over a gravel road, we're violating the code that says all parking maneuvering areas need to be paved, and we certainly won't maintain it. I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm just saying I don't know if Mr. Harlan has any thoughts on it, if they're planning on trying to get a public easement out of Pacific Power and the other guy. So I think there's some problems. My view was that this was emergency only. It would not just be for fire, but it would be for anyone that lived up there. If there's emergency, they absolutely could get out of there and have a right to do so. Honestly, if there's emergency now, I would hope that someone would find the least path of resistance and get out of there so they could be safe. But I just want to point out a little hiccup with making this public easement is, one, Mr. Harlan's going to have to get an easement from Pacific Power and Mr. Yonser, not just an access easement that he thinks already might work. And then two, the code requires parking maneuvering areas to be paved if they're used for an ongoing basis. The exception is for RV storage parking at your house. That can be gravel. So we got a little bit of a dilemma that I think maybe we need to figure out. Sorry, that probably didn't help clear anything up, but I just want to point that out. I think it was important.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I thought I heard public quite a few times, public access. Are we allowed to hear from the applicant one more time on clarity?
If you want to hear from Mr. Harlan again, we'll have to reopen the hearing, and then anybody can participate again.
Okay. Any discussion on this from the commission members?
I mean, if we walk it back then from a public access to emergency access only, does that cover us again? Is it now back to being privately maintained and doesn't have to be developed to city standards? And I understand the intent and I understand the purpose we're heading towards, but the wording of this, if we're adding it on outside of the language that is in the report, I think we need to be very specific on what it is we're adding on. Yes.
Good evening, Tanner again for the record, Farrington Fire Marshal. I'm going to suggest some, in Eric Mitten's words, squishy language. Maybe we make this emergency access that can be used for emergencies, including practicing for emergency evacuation.
The road would still be constructed to fire standards.
Right. I guess my concern is if we're trying to make a decision between a paved road that's going to be extremely expensive and may not happen versus a gravel road that can be practiced on and used occasionally, I would personally rather see that.
Yes, Commissioner Pulver.
So I guess, I mean, I only have seen what's come from Mr. Bartholomew, which seems to indicate that the ownership has right to use this easement. Now that doesn't speak to the Yonser property, and that's something that needs to be sorted out. But it sounds like we can require secondary access for fire, for emergency use, if in fact the easements do allow for public. That isn't our mandate. It's just how they're created. That won't prevent anybody from using them, to be honest. And I think if fire wants them to not be gated or restricted, the reality is what's going to happen is what's going to happen out there. And as far as maintenance goes, that's going to be negotiated between, it's going to be part of the easement for the two parcels and what goes over that. That's going to dictate who maintains it. The city's not going to have to. So I guess I would say we walk back Mark's amendment to the motion out of inability to actually impose that, if I'm hearing what Mr. Burrows said correctly, and I think we should vote on the original motion.
Okay. I think, Alan, did you want to touch on your question, or you want me to bring it up? I also have reference to the signage. All of the signage barring anything would need to be removed. Is that clear?
That is to me.
Do you mean you want
Yeah.
that added as a condition?
Well, no, it just needs to be part of the emergency access, that people can't
Yeah, if
post
it's
no
a-
trespassing,
If it's an,
not impassable.
emergency access easement, then the signage has to go away.
Is that understood to just be a part of the conditions as stated without adding anything? Is that clear?
Is that clear?
I'm just asking.
Okay. I mean, if it's emergency access and you're not allowed to post a no trespassing on an emergency access, I think it self-satisfies.
Okay.
The question would be, do you want to retract your amendment?
Well, as long as we understand that it's a public easement, then I'm okay with it. One, otherwise, I'm okay with it.
Okay, so retracting the amendment to the original motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Tanner has a good idea what we're after here, so.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas, do you have an
This is more of a question for Commissioner Pulver. So, since you know way more about this than I do. So when the easements are worked out, can we add something to the motion that makes sure that there is some kind of maintenance? I'm concerned about the exact situation why we need two exits, is that this, God forbid, never happens, but let's say it happens 20 years down the road and there's never been maintenance on that road ever. And so they're still sitting at the bottom of the hill waiting for people to get down because they can't get up this road that was not maintained. So is there a way to make sure that in the easement language that there has to be some minimum requirement for maintenance from somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I probably getting out over my skis a little bit, but I mean, I think the short answer is the easement could say any number of things, but that's kind of between two private parties. I don't think we can dictate what the easement says between those two parties. I think as far as Tanner's requirements and for his department, I mean, yes, I think they can require things. The interesting question of timing, it gets brought into question. I mean, if we get way down the road, right, and 26 homes have been built and the developer's out of it, he's sold everything. If Tanner and or code enforcement come in and say, well, this road, this emergency access easement is no longer the standard, who do they go to require that improvement? I don't know the answer to that question.
And I'll add one thing. In my experience in real estate, if somebody's going to grant an easement, there's usually a coupling of a road maintenance agreement, and that stipulates how the road's going to be maintained. I doubt that the Yoncers would grant an easement without saying, hey, you're going to hold me unliable for any maintenance of this road. It'll be incorporated as part of it. Oregon Revised Statute has language built in on maintenance requirements, but that's only on private roads that are accessed as public or private roads. Emergency access, I don't think that they have anything in the statute that covers that.
So we have to be okay voting for something that basically we know is not going to be maintained.
I don't think there's an indication it's not going to be maintained. I think that's going to be the responsibility of the developer and Mr. Harlan.
But I also believe that the developer, once they're out, which they're going to be at some point, but from what I'm hearing from Commissioner Pulver and Chair, who do this professionally, is that the people that are granting the easement aren't going to want to do the maintenance because they don't want to be held liable. So the developer develops it and they're out. And we still come back to the fire hazard issue where he's sitting at the bottom of the hill with his teams trying to get up because the road's not been maintained for 15 years.
With a maintenance and access easement, those are really common. It allows access and anybody that uses it to maintain it. A maintenance agreement would be separate and would, basically dictate who's responsible, who helps pay. That could be worked out. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Just having an access and maintenance easement allows, in theory, the people using it to maintain it. I appreciate your point, Commissioner Thomas. Yes, there are concerns with that. By having the easement, it does allow somebody to go in and grade it, especially if it's gravel. I think it gets even more complicated if it's paved. And then I think there's going to be even more interest in who continues to pay for maintaining that pavement after. Like, constructing it's one thing, maintaining it, crack sealing, seal coating, repaving if it breaks apart, especially on steep grades, that could get challenging and expensive. So I think there's two different levels. One is maybe dictating what happens and who cares, who is responsible for taking care of it. The other is just providing the ability for people to use it and maintain it, and then they're going to have to work together and figure out who does that. But in theory, anybody with access could run a grader down and smooth it out.
Yes, Commissioner Pulver.
I don't know if legal wants to weigh in on this or Tanner does, but I guess my question back to Jeff's, maybe following up on Jeff's question is, and there's a lot of ifs in this scenario, right? Once all the houses are built, maybe there's other construction that goes on up there. Maybe normal terrace has been improved. I mean, lots of, but with this specific thing, with the emergency fire access and 26 lots, which I think is what we're dealing with, if that emergency access deteriorated, right, and the 26 homes have been built, and code enforcement and or fire department were like, this is inadequate, but the home's already there, are you going after the new homeowners of those 26 lots? I mean, how do you recoup those funds or to get that maintained? I guess.
Thank you. I believe it would be whoever holds the property.
Yeah.
I think that's typically the way it works. Is it defaults back to whoever holds the property that maintenance and access easement is on. That's my understanding. I'm not trying to say that is the case in this one, but I think that's typically the way it defaults. And we would have the legal authority to go in and say, hey, this is a required second access. It's required to be maintained. It does need to be maintained.
Okay. Kelly?
Answer the question.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, I think we're hearing some testimony outside the hearing, so we need to kind of move along if we could, or reopen. That's your option as the commission. It's not mine. But I also wanted to clarify where I understand we are at the moment. I understand that we have the motion on the floor is to direct approval as on the screen, and then the friendly amendment was withdrawn.
Yes.
So what's on the screen is the current motion.
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Yes, Commissioner Bennett.
Yeah, just in looking at the criteria for approval, I think we're getting a little afield of that in this discussion. I think I mean, yeah, we could tack on anything we want, but as presented and as represented by the applicant's agent and the materials before us, I'll state, I think this meets the criteria and we should approve it, and I intend to approve it per the motion on the screen.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Pulver.
Chair, I'd probably echo what Ms. Bennett said. I mean, as it relates to the criteria, I think staff and the applicant have evidenced that the criteria have been met. That said, I do appreciate when residents come and speak. I think they should closely monitor. Well, number one, I think they should take heed to Mr. Burrow's recommendations as it relates to normal terrace safety improvements. I also think they should stay aware, alert to future development around the 26 lots and the TIA associated with that, as I think zone change is a place where a lot of these things might have been more relevant criteria-wise. But anyway, I'll be voting in favor of the motion.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? I'm sorry, the hearing's not open. We're not taking any more testimony. All right.
That's not fair. They got way more time than we did. Some statements were made after you closed the hearing. How was that?
We were having discussion on the motion and trying to hash out a motion appropriately. Any other discussion on the motion? Kaylee, could we have a roll call, please?
E.J. McManus,
Yes.
Marcy Pierce,
Yes.
Larry Busco,
Yes.
Mark McKechnie,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes?
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Jeff Thomas,
Yes.
David Culbertson.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses.
All right. Good luck with your project. And we're moving on to our next. Item 50.2 DCA-26-045, consideration of a legislative amendment to Chapter 10 to the Medford Municipal Code relating to child care facilities and programs. City of Medford is the applicant, and if the audience is going to be clearing, could you please do so quietly? We still have a couple items to do on the agenda. Thank you. And planner is Kayla Parr and Liz Hamblin. All right, Liz, fire away when you're able.
I'm not in a hurry, so I can wait a minute. All right. Good evening, Commissioners Chair. Liz Hamblin with the Planning Department. Kayla Parr is out of the office today, so I'm the one that gets to present our combined project. So I am presenting Development Code Amendment 26-045, which is our child care amendment. We're going to go over the background, the legislative context, existing municipal code framework, proposed amendments, and then a recommendation. This is going to be pretty similar to what the commission saw at their last study session. One of the things that I want to point out is the criteria can be found in 10.218 of the Medford Land Development Code. The Planning Commission is a recommending body to the City Council with the final decision on this. So through the legislative sessions in 2023, House Bill 2717 came through with an outdoor nature-based childcare requirements. And in 2025, we saw Senate Bill 1099, which allowed for preschools in a place of worship. And then again, House Bill 3560, which expanded the child care facility siting requirements. We do have some compliance dates that have lapsed with the outdoor nature-based school with House Bill 2717. That was effective in July of 2023. Senate Bill 1099, again, June of 2025. We're hitting the mark with House Bill 3560, and that's going to be effective January 1 of 2027. So just a little bit about House Bill 2017. It does add childcare program. It adds outdoor childcare programs to the definition of a childcare facility. It does require the program to be certified that operates primarily in an outdoor natural environment. This is a state licensing requirement through the Department of Early Learning and Care. And there are space requirements and staff-to-child ratios that are applicable for outdoor nature-based schools. The space requirements are 4,000 square feet per student or child. It can be on a private property or a public property. The program must have a permanent location, and then they can use indoor toilets, porta potties, toilets on public land. These are questions that came up during our review with other departments. The staff to child ratio for preschool age kids, it's 1 staff person for 8 children. And then once you get a little bit older into the school age kids, the ratio goes to 1 staff per 10 children. So just a little bit of understanding about the space requirements is if you have about 0.37 acres, you can have up to 4 children. And this is Bear Creek Park, if it's not legible. Moving on to 8 children, you get a little bit more space requirements. And then up to 16 children, it's at 1.5 acres. One of the things that we didn't address in the study session is what it looks like when you get into residential properties. This is going to come out of the home-based business and Chapter 8, which is not necessarily under a recommendation with you guys. It is going to go to City Council, but just for some clarity. So this is a SFR 6 zoned piece of property. It's 8,000 square feet, 0.1 acres. The structure is roughly 2,200 square feet. And the available outdoor space, once you look at the open space versus the structure, is around 5,700 square feet. So that's going to get you almost 1.5 kids allowed to be used on your residential piece of property. That doesn't mean that you can't have your residential piece of property be your home license where you can do your paperwork and your administrative work, but not necessarily using it as an outdoor nature-based space requirement. So that's just some clarification on that.
So somebody who has 2 kids and is homeschooling, are they violating the law?
No, nope, because they're not applying to be an outdoor nature-based school.
Okay.
So we do have the Blackberry Academy. That is a local example. It's the first outdoor nature-based school established in the city or in Oregon. They do manage out of Blue Heron Park in Phoenix. So they are in the valley. I'm not sure if they're going to come in quickly, but we're paving the way for them. And this is just the site plan that they use to get their approval. Again, Blue Heron Park. What's that? They probably have only 2.5 kids. Yeah. So moving on to Senate Bill 1099, this is where it requires local governments to allow for preschools or pre-kindergarten educations on lands where places of worship are allowed. So we're going to be amending our use table for that. It also preserves the local authority to impose reasonable regulations, and I think that our code amendment does that. So House Bill 3560, this is where it requires local governments to allow child care centers as outright permitted uses when they're in specific residential, commercial, and industrial zones. I'll address that in the table modifications later. It also modifies the definition of a child care center to increase what that means. You'll see those definitions later. It prohibits local governments from applying any additional conditions of approval before allowing the child care to co-locate. So we did amend the code. We're proposing to amend the tables to allow co-locates when an institutional use is already permitted. So in the sense where if a church or place of worship wants to get a conditional use permit on a piece of property, they can automatically co-locate a childcare facility with that and not require an additional conditional use permit. And then if we do have existing places of worship, they can just come in and be a permitted use. So going on to our existing code and our proposed amendments, our definition section, pursuant to the House Bill 2717 and 3560, we are adding outdoor, the definitions on the screen, we are adding that to our definition section. So all of it will be encompassed under the umbrella of child daycare center. So this is our permitted use table for residential lands. House Bill 3560 did say that we have to allow it in commercial and industrial lands, but it also says that anything over in the multifamily designation, we do have to allow child daycare centers to be a permitted use. So you'll see the change from a conditional use to a permitted use there. You'll see that we are scratching 10.811, and that's our special use standards for child daycare centers, and I'll address that in a little bit. We did add when located, co-located with an institutional use next to the child daycare facilities there. So on the top, this is our current code and how it reads for child daycare centers based on the standard industrial classification. And we are proposing to strike out the special use, which is in red. And that is due to, and then this is our commercial industrial zoning districts use table too. And we are proposing to strike that because of the special use regulations that we have in place right now address requirements that say you have to be licensed by the state. House bills already cover that. It also talks about the facilities that have 40 or more children have to have a basically a turnaround driveway so that you can just drop and go. But the way that childcare facilities work these days is you actually have to sign them in and out, so drop in and go isn't really applicable anymore. And as well, those driveway standards are more appropriate for institutional uses as opposed to child daycare centers. And then on to our churches, hospitals, and other religious charitable institutions in a residential district. So this is encompassing by the institutional use. We have to clarify that we can't add additional standards when they are co-locating. It does identify a couple age requirements. Kindergarten through 12 doesn't apply to co-locating in an institutional use. So then in chapter 8, which again is gonna basically go straight to city council because it's our chapter 8 and not chapter 10, we are changing some of the exceptions to home-based business licensing to allow for outdoor childcare programs. And again, this is really to address the administration of the program and not necessarily the site-specific use for the program. And this is out of House Bill 2717. So this is going to go to City Council on May 6th. And that's the last thing on the meeting schedule. Staff is requesting that the Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation for DCA 26-045 of the child care facility definitions and allowances. And I have a recommended motion, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody in the commission? Yes, Commissioner Thomas.
So just from the study session, we basically just copied and pasted what the state's requiring, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Warren.
So, Liz, I understand, reading this, it looks as if there's a distinction between preschools and daycare. Is that statutory? And who makes the determination? Because I'm aware that there are certain daycares that are also, or preschools that end up being daycare facilities. How does that all come into play here?
That's going to be based on a state license requirement, and we're making it all encompassing. There's not going to be a difference between a preschool at this location and a daycare at this location.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of staff? All right. Thank you very much. We'll open the public hearing. and invite Mr. Harlan if you'd like to come forward. No, all right. Got it. Okay, so no one coming forward to hear this application? We'll close the
I hope
public
not.
hearing. And is there a motion for consideration?
Mr. Chair, I move based on the findings and conclusions that all the approval criteria are either met or not applicable, that we forward a favorable recommendation for adoption of DCA-26-045 to the City Council per the staff report dated April 2, 2026, including all exhibits.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, motion's been made and second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Commissioner Wallen, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. All right, no discussion. Kaylee, could we have a roll call, please?
Mark McKechnie,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes?
Jeff Thomas,
Yes.
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Jim Wallen,
Yes.
Larry Besco,
Yes.
Marcy Pierce,
Yes.
EJ McManus,
Yes.
David Culberson.
Yes.
We have 9 yeses.
All right. Good luck with city council. All right. Next item, 50.3 CP-25-222, a legislative amendment to the economic element and goals, policies, and implementation strategy section of the Medford Comprehensive Plan to incorporate the updated economic opportunity analysis and related goals and policies. That's a mouthful. Applicant agent is City of Medford, and the planner is Carla Palladino. Can we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. Carla Palladino with your Planning Department. Okay, so this afternoon, a new revised Exhibit B was forwarded to the Commission. I hope you had a chance to look at that. I'll also go over it in a little bit more detail as I move forward. So this evening, I'll talk about the proposal and the criteria, give a little bit about a background on the project, talk about just some of the summaries of the plan, talk about agency comments, public involvement throughout this process, and the staff recommendation and suggested motion. So proposal and criteria, we are looking at a legislative comprehensive plan amendment. We are looking to amend the economic element as well as the goals, policies, and strategies related to economy. The applicable approval criteria are found in 10.220 sub 2 of the Medford Land Development Code, which points you back to the comprehensive plan. There are 3 different sets of criteria that were addressed in the staff report. One is regarding amendments to conclusions. The second set are amendments to goals and policies. And then there are a third set related to implementation strategies. So these have all been addressed in your staff report and are found to either be satisfied or not applicable. In terms of project background, so this project started October of 2024. It was funded through a state technical assistance grant and also city budget. We have a 2008 existing economic opportunity analysis and economic element. It was time to update that. The state was really looking for cities to update their elements and was providing funding, and so we had a chance to take use of that. We hired Community Attributes, Inc. to help us. We also collaborated with the City of Ashland, who are also working on an update to their element in terms of just looking at regional analysis data and trying to make those comparisons together. We did have an advisory committee. I believe Chair McKechnie was on our advisory committee. And we did have several different kind of instances where we had public input. So in terms of project deliverables, again, we're trying to amend the comprehensive plan. We're replacing the existing 2008 document with a new economic opportunity analysis, and then we are updating the goals and policies and implementation strategies. So as I mentioned, this project started in October of 2024. Pretty short timeline. We had a draft by June of 2025, and we had a chance to have 3 committee meetings. We had public input, and we had a survey and some different things. Probably not enough time really to dig into all of the data that we collected, but we got there, and we have what's before you this evening. So in terms of plan summary, the economic element is part of statewide planning goal 9, and cities must plan for the economy. Similar to our housing capacity analysis with the housing side for a 20-year supply of buildable land, we also need a 20-year supply for employment. So the state did review the draft document last summer, and they didn't have any proposed changes. So in terms of just plan content, just kind of going through kind of what the chapters look like, the EOA specifically includes an executive summary and introduction. It then goes into kind of the existing conditions of just kind of how Medford sits in relationship to the region and the state. It goes into some of the national, state, and regional economic trends, and then it gets a little bit more specific into our local data. We also then get into the buildable land inventory for industrial and commercial lands. We kind of finish off with some of the economic priorities that were discussed and some of the strategic themes that came out of the public outreach and the stakeholder interviews. And then for the goals, policies, and strategies, we've basically taken what exists and revised some of the conclusions based on the new document and made some modifications to the goals, policies, and strategies, really keeping the bulk of it there, but just making some changes. So in terms of existing conditions, this section really provides kind of an overview, as I mentioned, of the Medford context. It looks at population data, it looks at household size and income. It describes kind of home sale data, cost burden trends, and then it gets a little bit more detailed into looking at our zoning districts, some of the percentage of kind of what the total is. You can see obviously the yellow, we have a large amount of single family residential, and then the pie kind of splits and gets smaller as we're looking at some of those more specific commercial and industrial type zones. There also is a section about climate, so looking at environmental conditions and things that could disrupt the economy if there's a drought or heat or wildfire, things like that. In terms of national, state, and regional data, again, just pull some of the information from 2024, talks about the U.S. unemployment rate at 4.1%. It talks about how we've been constantly growing as a community, and so obviously as we grow, we need to make sure that we're accommodating the economic and housing needs that we will encounter over the next 20 years. And then it talks about some of the major industry sectors for the counties. It did look at both Josephine and Jackson County. So some of those main industries include services, trade, transportation, utilities, education, and health. And then getting down into a little bit more local level, this kind of goes into the workforce. It talks about our kind of larger employment sectors. So 37% of Medford workforce live and work here, and it just kind of highlighted that chart. So the share of Medford workers is 37%. The share of Medford residents is 54% of that total. Our largest employment sectors include healthcare, retail trade, accommodations, and food service. About 28% of our residents hold bachelor's degree or higher in comparison to, I believe that's similar to the county, and then it's slightly lower than the city of Ashland. In terms of job growth, we're estimated to increase by over 11,000 jobs by 2045, excuse me. And those same sectors that we'll be looking at would be healthcare, leisure and hospitality, finance, insurance, and real estate would be the ones that we would be looking, those are ones that are looking to increase. And then getting into the buildable land inventory, so we did have a urban growth boundary expansion in 2018 that did help add land to our inventory, and so that was counted for. Obviously, we've had about an 8-year build out of that. A lot of it's been mostly residential, but some commercial as well. So in terms of calculations, the report identifies that we do have a surplus of commercial of 202 acres and a surplus of industrial of 407 acres. The state also does require that cities identify properties that are what we call maybe shovel ready or have utilities and things that are either adjacent or in front of the properties. So we did kind of a desktop calculation of that based on kind of water and sewer and power lines. We came up with over 1,100 acres of short-term supply. And then in terms of just demand considerations, it goes into detail about some of the more specific nuances about each of the different GLUP designations. And so for the service commercial, we are lacking some very small sites for that type of GLUP. So if we think that in the future we'll need sites that are, you know, maybe smaller in size, we may need to use some of the other commercial zones to accommodate that. And then in terms of the heavy industrial GLUP, the 1 to 5 acre pieces seem to be a little bit lacking as well. So projected demand and current supply kind of are off a little bit there. Strategic themes, there were 7 strategic themes that were developed based on public input, stakeholder interviews, and discussions with the advisory committee. Some of these you can see on the screen, just really kind of talk about a little bit more of the vision and kind of where we can kind of ground ourselves in some things that maybe could be improved in terms of just workforce gaps, talent retention, looking at, you know, creating kind of a vision of kind of who we are as a city and what we want to be when we grow up. So a unified and forward look for economic vision of what that looks like. Looking at things in terms of, how jobs relate to housing. Do we have enough affordable and built inventory to help assist with bringing people in and having them live and work here? So things like that. And then in terms of the goals, policies, and strategies, as I mentioned, we did just update the conclusion statements based on the new plan. The economic goal remains the same. We only have one in this chapter that talks about actively stimulating economic development and growth that will provide opportunities to diversify and strengthen the mix of economic activity in the city. And then in terms of the policies and strategies, some of those were updated as well and added to, but most of them are the same. In terms of agency comments, we had formal no comments from engineering and Medford Water. And then in terms of public involvement, we kicked off the project with a joint online community survey with the city of Ashland. We had over 400 participants. We held stakeholder interviews, so this was everyone from the city manager to local, just folks in the community that were able to meet with us. We had an open house, was not well attended, but we held it. We had a public planning commission study session, 1 council study session, and 2 council briefings, and then 3 advisory committee meetings. And then in terms of public comments, we really didn't hear anything. We did hear from members of the Chamber of Commerce. We met with them twice, and we kind of had some email correspondence back and forth. Some of the things that were discussed include kind of development of the goals and policy and implementation strategies. Before we had met, those hadn't been kind of worked out, so we updated those and sent those out. We talked a lot about the economic growth forecast being a little bit lower than the previous one, so over the last maybe 10-year period, we had a 1.7% growth rate. This new projection is showing about a 1%, so it's a little bit lower. We had discussions about really that there wasn't any specifics about going after target industry opportunities, so really trying to figure out what is that maybe mix of manufacturing, or what are some of those key target industries that we might want to go after. So the plan doesn't specifically talk about that. It kind of just talks about what are some of those sectors that are going to be increased. And then we talked about the buildable lands inventory and kind of making sure that there's a strategy that we look at that in the next 5 years and make sure that we aren't below where we need to be. So those are some of the main concerns in terms of those conversations. I did make some adjustments based on an email this morning from Nathan Emerson regarding just some minor tweaks, and those were sent to you. Implementation 1-5 sub B, instead of it saying modify, we'll say evaluate modifying. This provides a little bit less of a will do and more of a let's review type of language. And then implementation 1-5 sub F, we would add within the next 5 years. And that I think is regarding the buildable lands inventory, or it could be something else. Let me see. I'll have to look. I don't remember what that one was. All right, staff recommendation. We're asking you to forward a favorable recommendation to City Council regarding the CP-25-222 per the staff report dated April 2nd, 2026, including all exhibits, and the replacement of Exhibit B with the most proposed existing modifications.
Okay.
With that, I'd be happy to try and answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions of staff on this?
Just
Yes,
one quick
Commissioner
one.
Wallen.
Carla, on the survey that you did with the City of Ashland, there were 472 responses. Did you keep track of how many were from Medford residents and how many from Ashland? Because I can see that they're
it was
different.
calculated, yes, but I don't have the breakdown. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. There were specific questions that asked where you lived, so we were able to calculate that because we figured we're not going to know if we don't ask. So.
Any other questions of staff? I just have one.
Yes.
Reading Exhibit B today, my brain glitched on something.
Sure.
And I know it's a carryover from the previous one. It says it's policy 1.5.
1.5,
The
okay.
City of Medford shall assure adequate commercial and industrial lands are available to accommodate the types and amount of economic development needed to support the anticipated growth in employment in the City of Medford and the region. Then right away it says 1.5A, place limits on commercial uses that are or can be permitted in industrial zones, which kind of sounds constraining rather than allowing for growth. And then you got implementation of 1.5B, You have the evaluate modifying the land use provisions to require mixed-use development on commercial lands when multifamily residential. So it's almost, I just need to wrap my mind around, you want to make sure that we have adequate, oops, sorry, meant to do that.
Okay.
Adequate lands for commercial and industrial, and then we need to limit commercial uses in industrial lands, but then we need to modify commercial allowing multifamily. It's like, I'm sitting there going,
Too many things.
we're being torn in 3 different directions. What are we doing?
I guess if we are sticking to a need for specific, and maybe this gets back to the target industries, it may. You know, if you need large industrial sites that accommodate specific uses, we need to make sure that we're not interjecting something that is going to be allowed in the industrial that may be more commercial, like a big box store or whatever it may be. So I think it's really just towing that line about, are we making sure that there's a decent amount of overlap, but not too much?
Okay. Just evaluating site by site.
And if you don't, the commission can say strike them. If you guys don't like them,
No,
you
I
can
just-
strike them too.
The brain glitched after reading 400 and something on our current one.
Okay, appreciate
All
it.
right. Any other questions of staff on this application? All right, let's open the public hearing. And is there anyone in the audience who would like to come down, Mr. Harlan, and speak on this application? Please sign in legibly and provide us your name and address for the record.
Good evening again, Commissioners. For the record, Jay Harlem with CSA Planning and AKS Company with offices at 4497 Brown Ridge. I just have a few comments on the EOA. I guess overall, I would say I wasn't enamored with the GIS work on this, and I still have some questions about it, but you know, I don't know. I think staff wants to get it off their plate, and we're not going to probably do a UGB amendment anytime soon for commercial and industrial, so it's not the end of the world. The meat in the middle there was the evaluate, and it'll, you know, at some point need to be revisited. We don't want to run out of land, which we were close to doing last time. So I would just ask the commission to keep that in mind. And I know the history of that implementation strategy, so I'll answer your question, which is Medford is actually allows a decent amount of commercial and industrial zones, and really what it's speaking to is the limitations are in the code limitations, in the way you can kind of do a branch bank in an industrial zone, but you can't build a main headquarters bank in an industrial zone, and restaurants are limited to so many square feet. So that's what it really, and that's from 4 economic elements ago or whatever, when the city did start to allow more mixed use in their industrial zones. And so that's what that meant. You can maybe state that more clearly or something, that's what it's supposed to do, but that really is where that implementation strategy comes from. Really the thing I want to talk to tonight is about the SIC code. And it's just really old. And I can tell you, you know, we work all around the state, and Medford's the only one that, I mean, the SIC code is really for classifying industries to see who works where, and for the Bureau of Labor, and, you know, for the Census Bureau and whatever the other, I can't think of it right now, what they call what's the federal one? No, not OSHA. It's, no, yeah, it starts with Bureau of Economic something, a BEA. That's the acronym. At any rate, it's to figure out who does what kinds of jobs and what kind of industries are where, so that they can analyze the nation as a whole. It really was never intended to figure out can you do a lease for this type of business in this building? That just was not what it's for. And it's just it can be when we have clients come in from out of town, like they're perplexed by it. I can just tell you that. They're like, what is this thing? I've never, you know, and sometimes they have, you know, we might be representing a property owner and then they have their own, you know, land use planner from Colorado or whatever. And it's like, they just have never seen this before. And in the case of the SIC code, there's a lot of those uses that, like, we have a lot of uses now that just didn't exist in 1986. They're just whole businesses that were not a thing then. And so, you know, Kelly does a really good job managing to figure out how to, you know, yet again, fit the square peg in the round hole. But I would encourage the commission to follow through on that implementation and sooner rather than later initiate an amendment to the code. And this is gonna be a big lift because I appreciate this because we also do work for like some small cities and stuff. Kelly doesn't want to all of a sudden have a bunch of non-conforming use nightmares. Like then all of her staff will quit and nobody will want to come work for. So I get it. I don't want it either, right? I do not want to have more non-conforming use applications going through with city. But because the city has a business licensing system, I think there's a way to manage, you know, in a thoughtful planning project to make sure that we don't make a bunch of non-conforming uses, but Medford can move to a way of applying its zoning and the uses that are allowed in the zoning to a more standard way. And an example like the challenge with the SIC, right? One of the examples I give is like Harry and David, right? From an SIC perspective, it's a retailer. It's in the business of retail. Like that's what it does, right? But as a planning matter, like it's same with Amazon. Now Amazon went in Center Point. Amazon's retailer as it gets as an industry, right? But what did they didn't build you know, they built a warehouse, right? And a bunch of automation and stuff like that. And so we're ending up in this weird spot every single time. And Kelly figures out a way to make it all okay. But I think it would be better if we could gravitate towards a zoning code that's more typical that we see in almost all the other jurisdictions. So I would encourage, you know, go ahead and do the favorable recommendation and move this along, but I would encourage the commission to follow up with an initiation. And it'll take a while to work through to come up with something that everybody likes, but I think it's a worthy project to implement the new economic element. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect.
Cool.
Any questions? Anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and speak on this? All right. Does anyone have any questions or does staff have any additional comments?
Just want to reiterate, the implementation 1-5-F is the one that Jay is speaking of, the standard industrial classification code. So that was the one with the new language within the next 5 years.
Okay.
Thanks.
Does the commission have any additional questions of staff or council? Seeing none. All right. We're going to close the public hearing. And is there a motion for consideration?
Carla will back it up. Mr. Chair, I move to forward a favorable recommendation for approval of CP-25-222 to the City Council per the staff report dated April 2, 2026, including all exhibits and the replacement of Exhibit B with the proposed modifications.
Thank you. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Kelly, can we have roll call, please?
Rachel Bennett,
Yes?
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Marcy Pierce,
Yes.
EJ McManus,
Yes.
Mark McKechnie,
Yes.
Jim Wallen,
Yes.
Jeff Thomas, Larry Busco,
Yes.
David Culberson.
Yes.
We have 9 yeses.
Okay, thank you. Favor it over, and be sure and remind him that was unanimous. All right, that concludes tonight's public hearing. Moving on to item 60, presentation and reports. Transportation, Commissioner Pulver.
We haven't met in a while. We are meeting this month, and I will do my best to bring up normal terrace discussion at that meeting.
Excellent. And site plan and architecture, Commissioner Thomas.
We have not met.
Okay. Planning Department, Ms. Aiken.
Alrighty, well, good evening, Commissioners. I'm still Kelly Aiken with your Planning Department. You did an excellent job on item 50.1. Thank you for your deliberation and discussion on that item. Couple things for you. Just a reminder, the Statement of Economic Interest filings are due on tax day. That's coming up this Wednesday if you haven't done it already. please remember to do so. Let's see, we have canceled a Monday study session, so you have a free Monday. We do have business for your next 3 meetings, so that's April 23rd and then both May meetings, the 14th and the 28th. Let's see, coming up, we didn't have any business at council last week. Coming up next week, we have the Transportation Safety Action Plan up at council, and also an appeal of your decision on the Mountaintop project. It's scheduled for hearing next week. So that will be interesting. And then I wanted to share something with you. On Tuesday, our Historic Commission considered and approved an application to rehabilitate the old New Far East structure. It's called Jay's Foodery, and what it is it's, as I understand it, it'll be 2 or 3 or 4 different cuisine types, and they'll share a kitchen and then kind of a shared seating area, but it's really neat. I just wanted to share this with you. I thought it was pretty nifty. I don't know if you can see, sorry, this isn't mine. This area, so if you're familiar, this is the Front Street facade. So this is the existing door, and they have a mural here already. They're going to replace the mural. This right now is a parking lot, and what it's going to be is a two-story open air eating area. It's kind of groovy. So I just wanted to share that with you, something new and exciting for your downtown. The other thing I wanted to point out, this is the 4th Street facade. So this is the north side of the building, which right now is just blank. Let me go backwards and I'll remind you. This is the north side of the building. So there are actually no windows in this building. I don't think there's any windows. I think there's just a door. So it's going to look, have a much stronger street presence. So we're pretty excited about it. I just want to share that with you. That's what's coming soon.
Where did the applicant come from?
The applicant actually owns the Mexican restaurant that's just on the other side of.
El Paraiso?
Thank you. Well, it used to
Habaneros?
be. Is it that now? I don't know.
Yes.
Something, El
El
Paraiso?
Paraiso. Yeah.
Yeah, and he owns 2 others in the valley, so I think he owns 3 in the valley.
I think that's
So pretty exciting, homegrown, really neat. So that's all
Awesome.
that I had to share with you tonight. Thank you.
fantastic. Okay, any questions of Kelly? Nope. All right, item 70, messages and papers from the chair. I don't have any, except I apologize for letting the clamor in the audience during the one application get ahead of me. And then item 80 is city attorney remarks.
No remarks.
Okay. Item 90, propositions and remarks from the commission. See none. And item 100, adjournment.